Comrades, fighters for freedom, sovereignty and true independence, good morning. Let us give thanks to God, who allowed this day to happen and enabled us to gather in this sports arena to discuss the future of our homeland. As a result of your decision on May 25th to entrust us with the destiny of our nation for another 5 years, we are grateful. We do not see this as just a mandate. We understand it as a message that was sent to us. The message was very well received, and we will do everything to always deserve your trust. Allow me also to pay a vibrant tribute to all the defense forces, internal security forces, volunteers for the defense of the homeland, and all those living in high-security risk areas who stand tall. We pay them homage and say thank you for all the sacrifices made for our homeland. I ask that we observe a minute of silence to honor the memory of all those who lost their lives in this struggle. Thank you. May the souls of the departed rest in peace, and may the injured recover fully. Amen. Comrades, the emotion is great, certainly, but allow me to structure my remarks in 3 phases. The first phase will concern the stage from which I will explain to you how we view this world. The second phase will focus on explaining why we must continue to fight, and the most important stage will be to briefly outline our vision for the future, if I may put it that way. During these past 20-something months at the head of the state, we have met many political leaders from all over. We have met hundreds of diplomats from all over. We have met businessmen from all over the world. We have been open to all these exchanges, all these discussions to learn from the world, to understand the world. And today, I think the occasion is very fitting for me to explain to you the conclusions we have drawn from all these meetings we have had with political leaders from all continents, diplomats from all continents. It's very important, the conclusion we have drawn, and it should help you understand the world, because often in our regions, we do not have the perspective to have access to certain people who will teach you many things through their behavior, through their words, and also by telling you how they view us. Comrades, God created the world with all the happiness, misery, goodness and evil that exist, with humans, spirits, animals, and everything that comes with it. But we humans have decided to make the world into something else. The Imperialists have a vision of the world that I will explain to you. For them, the world is summarized in a triangle. You will see the triangle in most of their symbols. Perhaps you do not understand, but for them the world is summarized in a triangle. At the top of the triangle is the empire of good, and the empire of good is them. It is prosperity. It is everything positive. They are the ones entitled to all the happiness in this world. They are the ones entitled to all the riches. It is up to them to impose their way of seeing the world. It is up to them to impose their vision, their way of life. That is why during colonization or their conquests, they came to our lands and said they had discovered our lands because, to them, we were savages. We had nothing like them. So they called us natives, and they consider themselves the people. They arrogate all rights to themselves, and for them, the world must function as they wish. It's simple. I will take a few examples. Look at their films. They have prepared the minds of their people to understand that they are the best. They must possess everything. You won't say otherwise in all their films that they propagate. You will always find that the villains are Russians, South Americans, or blacks, playing the bad roles of drug traffickers, pimps, or human traffickers. Until recently, of course, you would find Arabs playing the roles of terrorists. That's how they perceive the world. When I look at the economic aspect, who among us has not considered Chinese products as inferior, as we used to call them? But today, I can tell you that we were completely wrong, because China is at an advanced level of technology, and it is in China that most of these countries come to stock up, put their brands on it, and claim it as their own. Look around. Entrepreneurs in construction will not say otherwise. All their equipment today is Chinese. Those in transport will not say otherwise. They lied to us because we traveled the world a bit during these 20 months to look for companies, to look for factories, and we realized that everything comes back there. But through their communication, they made us hate all Chinese products and made us believe that what was good came from them, not necessarily elsewhere. It's simple. Go back in time to better understand what I am saying. You need to go back in time, and I hope some will read about the Mongol conquests, the Persian, Turkish, and Ottoman empires. Read their history. You will understand why the world is the way it is. At the base of the triangle, there are two empires. On one side is the empire of evil according to them, and on the other side is the empire of slaves. That's how they see the world. Who do they call the empire of evil? It is what I just mentioned. The origin, and I told you to go back in time. Go read. You will understand why they are the empire of evil in their eyes. They fight the empire of evil, and for them, the empire of evil must disappear. For them, the empire of evil embodies the devil. They communicate this and make it understood to their people. That is why after World War II, in the 1980s, I will take the example of Russia, where all the strategies were put in place to sink it with President Gorbachev. In the United States, it was President Ronald Reagan who was maneuvering. Three main strategies caught our attention. They went to Saudi Arabia and asked them to lower the price of oil from $35 to $7 to collapse the Russian economy. In parallel, the second strategy, don't forget something, these same people who just left Afghanistan, claiming they were fighting the Taliban were received by President Ronald Reagan at the White House. They were armed by the CIA. The famous Stinger surface-to-air missiles were delivered to the Taliban to fight the Russians. And later, they claimed to fight them. Go understand. The third strategy was a bluff, the IDS Star Wars project. Read and understand why they led President Gorbachev to create the Perestroika project, which sank Russia. Once Russia collapsed, those who claimed to be the empire of good began to celebrate until the arrival of the team with Vladimir Putin to try to bring Russia back to the surface. The empire of evil according to them, has suffered greatly. Look at Iran today with all possible sanctions. Look at how they label certain peoples. Through communication, they can lead you to hate a people or love a people. They are very strong in communication, and they use all possible channels. Look at the wars they launch. They have invented everything for their own interests. And finally, the empire of slaves, according to them, is Africa and some peoples of South America. In their minds, as I said earlier, Africa belongs to them, our lands belong to them, Africa's riches are theirs, and they cannot conceive that Africans could emancipate themselves, rise up, and want to stand up to them. And for that, they have ingrained in their minds the stereotype that Africans are easy to manipulate, that we are only emotional. They will always find an African to fight against his brother, and it has always been like this. Through communication, they have made you hate your own skin color. In our cultures and in many cultures here in Burkina Faso, mourning was symbolized by the color blue. When a woman lost her husband, she wore blue garments for a certain period of mourning. It was them who came to tell you that black symbolizes mourning, the devil, mediocrity, everything that is bad. And unfortunately, we have swallowed it so much that when we are in mourning, we also wear black. We need to wake up. We need to wake up because this is the stereotype they have in mind. They are the empire of good, others are the empire of evil, and we are the empire of slaves. That's how the imperialists see the world. You need to understand this, and now I'm going to take a stand against certain intellectuals who continue to want to preach for the imperialists. Do they not know this part of history? I am not making this up. It has been declassified. You will find everything I have said in libraries or everywhere on search engines. Haven't these intellectuals read this? Do they not know the history of this world? It may be dishonesty or a few $1 billion that lead them to always preach for the imperialists. Our intellectuals must at all times preach to raise the awareness of our peoples, our popular masses, so that they understand where they come from and how they are seen by the imperialists. Let's take the history of a few wars. You followed the Iraq War, a big lie that was invented about the alleged possession of weapons of mass destruction. Some senators in the United States did everything to obtain proof, but they did not get it. Remember that several people resigned from the CIA after this war. Evidence was fabricated from all sides. Western intelligence services helped fabricate evidence. And we remember that Niger itself was accused at the time by fabricating a fake contract for selling uranium to Iraq. It is the same process they wanted to implement recently by claiming that Niger is clandestinely selling uranium to Iran. It's déjà vu. They claimed it. They had no proof. Even the United Nations eventually found that there was no tangible evidence of the presence of weapons of mass destruction. But they had their goal. They had to destroy Iraq. They destroyed Iraq. They created the Islamic State, just as they created the Taliban in the 1980s, armed them, equipped them, and later pretended to fight them. Understand the game. It has gone on for too long. We need to wake up and understand all this and become aware of our situation and fight for our future. All these wars were invented, from Iraq to Syria to Libya, to destabilize the world for their benefit because no one should be able to match them. This is what we are experiencing today in the Sahel as well, through the terrorism they have imposed on us, because they will always find blacks who will get excited and take up arms against their black brothers. This is what we are experiencing. They have never left this model, unfortunately. Many people agree with them because of a few dollars. They sell themselves very cheaply to the enemy, to the imperialist, and start fighting their brothers. I wanted to give this brief history of the world so that you understand how imperialism sees our world. It is summarized in this little triangle. After this, in the second phase, I must explain to you why we must fight. A little story. In 2015, in Timbuktu, when we met, I was in charge of the security of the airport platform during patrols. We encountered individuals wandering around. One of these individuals was amputated. I made him understand that it was dangerous to wander around the base because he could be killed. He told me he wanted to be killed, he wanted to die, and I tried to understand their story. Some were insane, others were normal, but they sought death because of terrorism. They explained to us that when the terrorists entered Timbuktu, a certain amputee who explained this to me one evening, terrorists came to his home and wanted to rape his wife in front of him. He opposed it, and they left. The next day, they came back, fetched him from home, took him to the public square, accused him of theft, and cut off his hand. He was beaten, returned home, and his 16-year-old son, who was taking care of his hand, was taken by the terrorists. They returned and raped his wife for days until she committed suicide, and they took his son. He never found his son again, and he prefers to die. That is why he wanders around hoping that a sentry will shoot him. That would make him happy. Others suffered the same fate. They were taken from their homes because they refused to let the terrorists touch their wives or daughters. The next day, they were dragged to the public square, beaten bloody, and then taken away to relieve themselves. Many families have been destroyed like this. These are criminals, rapists, bandits, drug traffickers who are armed and sowing desolation in our lands. They do this in the name of no religion, unfortunately. Here in Burkina Faso, some villages have allowed themselves to be compromised by these individuals. I speak from experience. In 2022, nearby, I went with my unit to a village because they did not want us to stay there because they were in good relations with the terrorists. Those listening know what we are talking about. Several other units are witnesses. Some villages categorically refused to let the defense forces set foot because they were in good relations with the terrorists. We made it clear there can be no alliance with these criminals because it is they who will decide the day the pact ends. Later, I think many villages understood this when the pact was broken. They came back on social media to call for help. We went there, but it is to say that no matter what they come to tell you, no matter the possible flattery, no matter the pact you signed with them, the day they decide to end the pact, they will come and kill and end the pact. There is no possible alliance with terrorists. There is no possible alliance with these criminals. They must be fought. 1. Today we are witnessing a phenomenon, unfortunately, in our cities. Some people take pleasure in going from court to convince the wives of certain defense forces, certain volunteers for the defense of the homeland, and the families of certain people who fell for the nation that they had a peaceful solution with the terrorists. It is we who wanted to wage war. That's why all this is happening. How can human beings, seeing everything that is happening and understanding the world, make such statements? Don't be mistaken. Either we fight them or they fight us, that's all. These people hide, claiming to be behind a semblance of dialogue or negotiation. Again, they will drag you through the mud. That is the objective of imperialism, for the plague to last, for it to last over time, for your states not to be structured, and for them to continue to profit from your riches. The longer it lasts, the more it suits them. Unfortunately, these individuals who go from court to court are playing the game of the imperialists. If they hear me, they should stop now, because they will fight themselves. We have no choice but to fight, and we have chosen to fight, and that is how we will be free, truly independent. To do this, we have taken the time to diagnose the deep problem of Burkina Faso. I must admit that the problem is real and deep. The evil is there. We have diagnosed it and are discovering day by day the system. Many efforts remain to be made because every day that God makes, we discover certain practices. I can understand that over several decades, this system has settled, and it has become like a gene in our DNA. But we must succeed in removing this gene from our DNA and being able to build a new Burkina. That is why, in the third phase of my remarks, I intend to outline the key directions in certain areas. We will not provide details on our program, if we can call it that, because when the program is known in detail, they will anticipate it, place obstacles in our way, and prevent us from achieving our objectives. But we can summarize it in a few words, speaking about the field of defense and security. As you can see, we have chosen to fight, and for that, we have almost doubled the numbers in our armed forces. We continue to recruit, and I believe that recently, recruitment drives were launched for officers and non-commissioned officers. And soon, in a few days, recruitment for at least 10,000 soldiers will be launched. We continue to strengthen the numbers to face the situation, because wherever you are, despite the recruitment that has been done, there is always a need for military personnel everywhere in Burkina Faso. Some villages still want a military presence, so there is a need to continue recruiting and equipping, and I can assure you that we are on that path. Since January 2023, we have launched an equipment program. It is true that the world is crazy. There is war everywhere. No nation takes its equipment and sells it. They manufacture it for you, which has caused these equipment delays of nearly 18 months. But the first ones have started to arrive, as you have seen recently, and the equipment will continue to arrive because we want our army's level to reach a level never before achieved in the sub-region. This equipment program will continue, and you are the actors in this program, because since we have been fighting, I can tell you that these so-called friends of Burkina, who have been here for a long time, who have been sucking our riches, have not given us even a single Kalashnikov cartridge to fight our battle. It is you who pay, and we will continue to work closely with our people to carry out this struggle. We have partners who have agreed to sell us equipment and have even offered to deliver strategic equipment to us and allow us to pay over time. We thank them for this gesture, and we again thank the people who understand the meaning of the fight. If we don't fight, they will come looking for us as if we were chickens or sheep in a barnyard, choosing who they want to execute in the public square every morning, chopping off hands or feet in the public square to scare others. That is their tactic. We will fight, and we will give ourselves the means to achieve this. If tomorrow we find ourselves stuck in a certain direction, we will again turn to the people and ask for more sacrifice to reach the goal because, despite your contributions, I told you earlier, certain powers have refused to sell us equipment, have blocked the equipment we have purchased in certain countries because they have the license for certain components, and these powers are exploiting mineral resources in Burkina Faso. I say it here loud and clear, this will stop. We will withdraw exploitation permits. We will not allow this. You cannot exploit our resources and refuse to sell us equipment, block our equipment. We will not accept this. Let them expect that we will reclaim our exploitation permits and we will exploit them ourselves. Returning to conclude on the defense aspect, we will not go into too much detail, but know that everything that has already arrived, the men are being trained on it, other equipment will come, and we will wage this war. Many strategies have already been written, and we adapt them according to the enemy's behavior, and we will soon defeat this terrorism here in Burkina and even in the sub-region. As for the public sector, for a long time we have spent time warning a certain number of actors, but we have understood that the phenomenon is so deep. Corruption, bad governance in the various administrations, lack of ethics persists. Certain bodies have been set up as part of the fight against corruption, and recently some decrees were issued regarding whistleblower bonuses. The last act will be taken before the end of this month. It is a body that will sit in all ministries to address certain dysfunctions, acts of corruption, and be able to take action. And these bodies will be ready because we also have many hard-working people in the administration who are often kept in the shadows, sidelined, because for a long time it is the most corrupt, the most dishonest who have been in the spotlight. They are the ones who enjoy all the advantages, and I say to the workers to be careful of these individuals who are losing their privileges because they will continue to manipulate you, to intoxicate you, and to lead you astray. Be very careful of these individuals who are losing their privileges because we will not allow a so-called elite, therefore, to arrogate all the rights in our different administrations. The last body will be in place before the end of this month, and the real work will begin. You will hear rumors here and there as a result of this, claiming that we do not respect certain texts or laws. But there are no laws or texts that matter in this fight when it is for the good of the nation. Let it be known that we will go in this direction. In the recruitment process, we have adopted a line of conduct. We are diagnosing, verifying attendance, and assessing needs. It is not excluded that during the year, some exams may be launched to increase the numbers in certain areas. Of course, there was initially a wave of exams launched, but in all areas, they are making an assessment. If necessary, I say, if necessary, we will continue to recruit to reach an acceptable level and make the various bodies of the country function well for the benefit of the popular masses. In the area of diplomacy, we have opted for a common diplomacy in the sub-region. All decisions concerning African or foreign partners will be made unanimously within the sub-region, but we have also opted for a diplomacy of truth. We will not lie or cover up reality, claiming it is diplomacy. This is false. That is not what diplomacy is. I can tell you that what you see on the surface, when people come for an audience and speak to the microphones, is only the visible part of the iceberg. What happens inside behind closed doors has nothing to do with diplomacy. We are committed to this logic of clearly stating things to the people. Some will criticize, others will even say that a head of state should not speak like that. A head of state should not do this. But we tell them that maybe those who criticize like this, when we tell the truth, maybe they have a school where they learn to be head of state, how a head of state should be. Otherwise, I have not yet seen this school, and why should we necessarily resemble others and do as others do? We want to create our model, our identity, and I think that Burkina, by definition, is the land of integrity. We want the truth, and when the truth comes out, even if we have made a mistake, we must have the courage to come and tell you that on such and such a point, we made a mistake. We ask for forgiveness. If you forgive us, you forgive us. But we no longer want to be part of this deceitful diplomacy. In an interview, we spoke about the Ivorian regime. Some Burkinabes got on their high horse and criticized. I say it, I insist and persist. We have nothing against the Ivorian people, but we have something with those who govern Côte d'Ivoire. We say it, and we repeat it. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. There is indeed an operations center in Abidjan to destabilize our country. No one can deny it, and we will provide proof in the coming days. We will show you physical evidence so that you will understand what we are talking about. No one can tell us that in Benin, there is no French base directed against us. We have the proof in hand. 2 important bases. No one can contest this, and I challenge them. We have no problem with the people of Benin. We have a problem with the politics of the leaders of Benin, and we say it loud and clear. Again, in this diplomacy, we have decided to speak the truth. There are indeed 2 bases, one near Kandi and the other heading towards Porga or some other locality. Runways have been refurbished to over 3,000 meters long. Planes land. People are equipped and train the terrorists there. We have audio recordings of French agents in Benin who are in charge of terrorist operations. They mount operations with them, they help them heal, they do everything there. We have all the details on them, and you do not want us to tell our people. We will tell them. If they do not want us to tell, they should stop behaving this way. It is simple. We did not force anyone to take their independence. If you decide to stay in your situation, that is your choice. But do not turn your countries into rear bases, because it is your populations who will suffer afterward, and it is not a good policy. We say this from experience, and I always repeat it. Burkina was a rear base for destabilizing certain countries, and it is not good. Burkina was a rear base at one point for terrorists here, and that is the price we are paying now. So, as a preventive measure, The peoples of these countries I am talking about must talk to their leaders and stop this policy because it is not in their best interest at all. Moving on to the field of communication and culture, we have launched several initiatives over the course of the year 2024. You were able to celebrate with us the local consumption month, the traditional days, the heritage month. Many activities were conducted. We will continue to bring our culture to the forefront because that is where we find our identity. We will continue actions in this direction to promote our culture, to promote our customs, and to promote the Burkinabe way of life. We wish that everyone be an actor in the emergence of Burkina Faso through their way of communicating because everything is also found in communication. You recently witnessed the communication war that was waged against us, and it continues. It will not stop. And I wish that all those in communication be professional. When we want to carry out a communication act, we should ask ourselves if it is for the nation or against the nation before taking action. No matter what, you may not like me, my person. You may not like me, but you should love your country. In harming me, you should not confuse the country and the person, so the communication field will have to align with this principle, and we will have to recenter communication on all aspects, and this line of conduct will be adopted. We will not allow Burkinabe people to communicate against Burkina Faso. We will always aim to raise awareness, to sensitize the popular masses so that people understand why we must fight on all fronts. Returning to the field of agriculture, as you can see, we have launched initiatives since 2023, and this year, the offensive has been launched. It is going more or less well. I would like people to understand that we have decided to allocate a large part of our budget and our time to the agricultural world, because more than 90% of our population is rural. But for decades, they have never benefited from the public interest, and that is why we have decided to undertake a number of initiatives. The actions we are taking are to plow all the fields of all the farmers in Burkina Faso, to give them the seeds they need, and to allow them to have access to necessary inputs at subsidized costs to help us in the fight against food insecurity, because self-sufficiency in food is essential. In this same direction, we recently created the National Office for Hydro-Agricultural Dam Development. We will equip it, because you are all witnesses in your various regions that we have retained a lot of water, many dams, but they are silted up, they are clogged, and we have the possibility of building other dams. We are in the process of purchasing equipment for this office so that it can deploy across the territory and, with the contribution of the populations, build many dams and desilt many dams. We will continue this fight. We will continue this fight until we achieve food self-sufficiency so that our populations can eat their fill. In the field of infrastructure, we have a crucial lack of roads, and in analyzing the situation, we found that for some roads, the studies are very old, and for others, there are no studies. We cannot build a road without having studies. Studies are a prerequisite. That is why in this sector, we have ordered the ministry to conduct many studies on many sections, which will allow us in the future to launch works and do them well so that they are durable on many sections. For this, we have noticed that the costs to pave 1 kilometer of road section are around 500 million francs. So for 100 kilometers with drainage works, we need at least 60 billion to pave 100 kilometers of road. It is very expensive and costly. The technique has been to create infrastructure intervention brigades. We are in the process of equipping several brigades with equipment to do the minimum and allow construction companies to also live and do part of the work. We will split the workload in two to reduce expenses and build as many roads as possible within a certain period of time. This has already begun, and we will continue this process over the course of these 5 years that have been entrusted to us. In the field of urban planning, we are in the process of redesigning our cities, and if you notice, the cities are too large. Take Ouagadougou, for example, but the sanitation infrastructure and others are not keeping up, which causes us to wade through mud, and we do not have enough sanitation. This creates many diseases that can lead to epidemics. We have a process to concentrate the cities through high-rise construction. For this, we have established a plan to start with one neighborhood, concentrate as many people as possible, and then extend to other neighborhoods. Certainly, if people are moved to these neighborhoods, many lands will be freed up to now draw good plans for our cities. We will start with a certain number of cities first, and then extend it to all other cities. Urban planning should allow us to work on the health aspect, because if urbanization is well done, there are a good number of diseases, such as dengue, cholera, and certain water-related diseases that stagnate in our streets that we can avoid. We will therefore have a good result in the health field. This brings me to the health sector. We have decided for some time now to upgrade the technical capabilities of certain hospitals, to equip certain centers with scanners and equipment that will allow citizens to have appropriate examinations at a lower cost. We will continue in this process, which is why we launched the Presidential Initiative for Health at the last Council of Ministers. It will involve creating what we have called communal health centers, and in these health centers, we have integrated a minimum of services that must be provided to the population. This will include imaging services, such as ultrasound and radiography, blood banks, and laboratories, so that populations in various provinces and communes, some of which are very far away, do not have to move far or need an ambulance for a blood transfusion, bringing patients to certain centers that may not be able to reach due to the poor state of the roads. So this initiative has already been launched, and we will ensure that we start construction of the first centers and their equipment before the end of the year. We will continue as we go along, within our means, to provide a strong health system to all our populations. We do not want to see anyone leaving their locality to come to a regional hospital for an X-ray or a blood transfusion. It is possible, because I come back again to our imperialists, who have pillaged us for a long time. Look at their simple hospitals for their animals. They are better equipped than our health centers. This is unacceptable. We can reach this level, and we have decided to fight to reach this level. The ministry has also been instructed to train the necessary personnel to equip these centers as we establish them, because it requires dedicated professionals. To be more precise, we have noticed that we have well-trained doctors. Take the example of those who perform heart surgeries. We are in the process of supporting them to establish a well-equipped institute that will allow them to perform certain heart surgeries locally, because they have the capacity, but they lack the equipment. We are waiting for their progress report to help and support them. Many other specialties have proven themselves, and we will do everything to support them in this direction. The initiative also includes intensive care centers in certain regional hospitals that do not have them, because we have been told that after several operations, patients often die due to the lack of an intensive care unit. So this is a comprehensive plan that we are implementing to strengthen the health system, and we are convinced that if Burkinabe people eat their fill and urbanization is well done, we have already won a lot in terms of health on many fronts, and we must now support this with proper equipment. In the field of education, we have done an assessment, and as you know, our student comrades are here. They will not deny it. How to get rid of these overlapping years? How to redo the system? Well, we have come to a conclusion, and we have launched the Initiative for Quality Education, which will integrate all levels from preschool to university. The first buildings should therefore be ready before the end of the year. We have opted for high-rise construction to gather as many students as possible in given areas, to allow thorough and effective supervision of education, because teaching is also education. In the end, we should have complexes in most of our communes that will go from preschool to secondary school, and university centers should see their capacity increased as well. Today, when we look at our classrooms, which are built a little everywhere, the rainy season has begun. The weather has once again shown us that this is not the best option. That is why we no longer want to build isolated centers with small houses with 3 classrooms. We will move towards high-rise construction to gather as many students as possible in a given area and provide appropriate supervision for quality education. Many other things will be initiated from the primary level. We will return to certain fundamentals of discipline and instill a number of values in the younger generation from the primary level so that they become good citizens of tomorrow. There will also be a beginning of military training, if I may say so, civic and patriotic, for the little ones to continue in high school. The national program for the National Service for Development is undergoing changes. The text was submitted to the Council, and we sent it back with amendments, so that current workers can also participate in this program to receive military training, and it will be organized in shifts over specific periods. It is all about discipline, because by nature, military training should instill discipline in people. We will therefore instill certain values at all levels of our education system. Returning to university centers, before the end of the year, we will start the construction of a certain number of amphitheaters, and later, when the means allow, we will address the issue of catering and also student housing in the various university centers. But we will start with amphitheaters to allow students to have a place to study, so that the overlapping of academic years can be considerably reduced. We have made a budget that will be submitted to the Assembly this month to initiate all these operations. What does this mean? We have reduced administrative operating expenses to inject them elsewhere, notably in education and health. This program is ready, it has been launched, and in the coming days, you will be informed of the progress of everything we are telling you. We will continue this course throughout the 60 months entrusted to us. Returning to the mining sector, as I said earlier, we have adopted a new policy. Burkina Faso is rich in many types of minerals, but there is one mineral for which there are secrets for Burkinabe people, and I want to salute our brave gold miners who managed to go deep into our lands to extract this mineral. We have decided to no longer allow foreign multinationals to come and exploit our gold while we know how to do it ourselves. That is why we have ordered the ministry to reorganize the gold miners, and the government will take charge of gold exploitation. As I said, several permits will be withdrawn from certain individuals, and we will exploit it ourselves. We will equip ourselves. We will equip ourselves with machines to do this. But even if we are not fully equipped, our gold miners have proven their courage and determination. We will dig our own gold, and it will be ours in Burkina. For other substances where we cannot do it, of course, our sincere partners who agree to support us in this struggle are the only ones to whom we will grant certain permits, because they have agreed to support us in the fight for our sovereignty, in the fight against terrorism. We have drafted a new mining code that is currently in the Assembly, and I hope it will be passed next week to impose a new model on the various companies that will come to exploit gold here, so that the maximum benefit goes to the state. In the energy sector, as you have noticed, we have serious energy problems. Population growth has not been accompanied by an energy policy. Today, when the heat peaks arrive, there are constant power outages. Many activities suffer. We are in discussions with partners who are currently in Burkina Faso to build, urgently, large-capacity thermal power plants. We want to see with them how we can reduce construction time. The discussions are currently focused on reducing construction time and the financial model we will put in place. We hope to achieve this while our long-term process of nuclear power plants sees the light of day. On this front, it is also going very well, and we can assure you that it is progressing well. We are in the process of setting up a unit here, if I can say so, to train Burkinabe people who will take over, who will follow the entire construction process and take over, the transfer of skills. So it will take a very scientific process so that we can, in the future, when the nuclear power plant is there, that not too far in the future, it will be the exclusive property of the Burkinabe people, that Burkinabe engineers will take ownership of it and be able to operate it, be able to maintain it. When the conclusions of the ongoing discussions with partners for the thermal power plant materialize, we will make it available to you. If we need your help, we will let you know to quickly implement this plan as well. Speaking of the economy, which is very close to our hearts, we are in the process of implementing a process for the payment of domestic debt, which has begun little by little with the smallest debts. Bills of less than 100 million have been paid, and we continue to do so as we go along, because this must relieve the private sector and therefore revive the economy. Currently, we will quickly turn to state-owned companies. Their General Assembly has just finished, as you have noticed. They are functioning very well, and they have achieved very good results. We will extract some funds from their profits to relieve the economy, and therefore revive it. So in the coming days, if it pleases God, many entrepreneurs will be relieved after signing agreements with state-owned companies. In the mining sector, as I said earlier, we are gaining a certain independence, which should allow us to have significant resources in terms of finances. But also, and above all, the industrialization process must come to fill this economic gap because we spend a lot outside. We are in the process of setting up all the processes to ensure that our foreign currency does not leave the country. In the sub-region, as you have noticed, we have decided to establish an investment bank and a sovereign wealth fund. The technicians are working on it, and we hope that in the near future they will present something substantial to us. Another strategic aspect that I do not want to talk about, and that you know about, is progressing steadily. And when the time comes, it will surprise you, so stay tuned. That is all I can say. In the area of commerce and industrialization, we have also conducted diagnostics. As I told you, currently, as you have noticed, we have listed many products that we import from abroad. We are in the process of initiating an industrialization process. We must establish as many industries as possible on site to process our raw materials and produce what we consume. We are in this process and are discussing with many partners to have the maximum number of industries on site. This will ensure that our foreign currency does not leave the country, that the economy runs smoothly, and that we also have employment opportunities for young people. In this context, we have taken certain decrees to facilitate the creation of small businesses. We have waived all taxes for a number of years to allow small businesses to be created and thrive. Unfortunately, small businesses find themselves facing financing needs. It must be said that obtaining financing from banks is very complicated when you create your business. We have met with the banking sector, and as I said, we have exchanged views, but I am not at all satisfied because the response that should have been made to support small businesses in obtaining financing is not satisfactory. That is why we are reorganizing our funds available to the state. We have consolidated them into a number of funds, both in agriculture and in the Ministry of Employment, to soon replenish these funds and allow young people who create businesses to obtain loans and be able to start. Therefore, I take this opportunity to call upon the banking sector again to return with proposals because we have solutions, but perhaps not the best solutions for them. But they must come back a little to support us in helping young people succeed. If not, we will be forced to implement a plan that may not be pleasing, but we will have to do it. In the field of commerce, as you have noticed, many people have approached us during our market tours to discuss the situation. We have assessed the situation. There is so much work to be done to rebuild these markets that today, when you look at Ouagadougou, the mayor is holding sensitization sessions everywhere concerning a certain number of merchants who have settled in an anarchic manner along the streets. But I have instructed that this be done through sensitization while we clear spaces to build proper markets and ask people to take shops in these markets and then free up the streets to clean up our environment. I take this opportunity to ask you, the city population, to help us in this sensitization phase by sensitizing yourselves not to build around Sonobel poles, which are a danger to yourselves, not to build on water drainage ditches, and I count on you to help us achieve this goal. Returning to the area of employment, sports and youth, we are in the process of implementing a reform. There will be a cabinet reshuffle in a few days, and the architecture of ministries will change slightly. We will dedicate an entire ministry to secondary and vocational education so that we no longer have this blockage at the university level that currently exists. We must be able to professionalize many young people from high school onwards, whether from the 4th grade or at the secondary level, so that people can decide to pursue vocational pathways and be able to self-employ. Therefore, a ministry will be dedicated entirely to this, because as I said, after the diagnosis, you agree with me that we train very few engineers, yet a developing nation's development index is also measured by the number of engineers trained. Look back in history and see all these great nations. The number of engineers trained per year in specific fields is crucial for development. In Burkina Faso, we do not have enough engineers, which is why we want to elevate the Polytechnic School of Ouagadougou into a polytechnic university by adding a number of technological fields and recruiting as many students as possible to be trained there and produce engineers. It is good that we have fields like modern literature, philosophy, law, psychology, history. Many students find themselves in these fields against their will. It is not necessarily what they chose, but these are the available fields that do not necessarily provide job opportunities. That is why we have decided to enhance the professional training and employment sector by dedicating an entire ministry to it. In the coming days, this reshuffle will take place, and you will see how we will evolve. In the area of sports, youth and sports, we have deemed it necessary to take control again. We must take control again to recenter because, first and foremost, sports help to prevent certain vices. Drugs, alcohol, certain societal vices can be combated through sports. We want to establish centers in all regions, reconsider the Burkinabe Football Federation and all sports disciplines, to promote them and create nurseries, so that at the professional level, we have the maximum number of Burkinabe people defending the colors of Burkina Faso abroad. The ministry that will be dedicated to this has already drafted many texts, and we will implement them within the next 15 days after the reshuffle to create these spaces ourselves. This will require uniting a certain number of forces to achieve this, and I count on you in every region, in every province, to have this sports discipline and to encourage participation in sports, to identify talents and nurture them. Some aspects of governance, such as digital transition, will not be elaborated on because it is a relatively new process. We are in the process of digitization to combat corruption and also facilitate many things for users. The process has already been launched, and you see every day the applications that are being created, which allow us to facilitate many activities for users. Even in the field of justice, you have seen that criminal records and nationality certificates can now be obtained easily online. We will continue in this process. Also, returning to the field of humanitarian affairs, we have given instructions to the ministry, which is the Ministry of Women, Gender, Social Cohesion, and Humanitarian Action. They handle all these issues, but we have decided in a first phase to focus on humanitarian action, particularly supporting populations returning to their villages. Today, many people return to their villages at the beginning of the rainy season or during the rainy season. It is very difficult for them to feed themselves during this time. Therefore, certain aspects of the ministry, such as gender and others, may seem less present because we have instructed the ministry to focus on humanitarian action, ensuring that as villages are retaken, they have the minimum means to survive. And then, after a while, we will be able to address all these aspects because social cohesion, as we speak of it, can only happen when people are well fed first. A poor person and a rich person cannot sit at the same table and talk if one is hungry and the other is well fed. It is complicated. This is what I always tell those who come to talk to us about social cohesion. Someone who is hungry and someone who is well fed, and you want to sit them down at the same table to talk, it is not possible. Everyone needs to be well fed first. That is why cohesion lies in the struggle. Let us accept to struggle. Cohesion is born out of struggle. It is in struggle, in war, that unity is forged in the sub-region. It is in struggle that Burkinabe people are uniting. Go and see all those villages that are being retaken. I invite you to tour them. Many have come from different provinces. They may have had disagreements in their villages, but when they return, they are more united than ever. Social cohesion is also found in the struggle. And finally, I left the field of justice for last to conclude our vision in this area, because we have a serious problem in this field. We have begun reforms recently at the level of the Superior Council of the Judiciary. We have seen writings, we have seen behaviors of certain unions in the world of justice. Well, some have tried to boycott everything they can, but as Diop said, with or without them, we will move forward. We have pleaded for fair justice, if I may say so. We have sensitized people a lot, but we have realized that there are many black sheep among them, unfortunately. We cannot understand that despite everything we say, there is justice for the poor and justice for the rich. This cannot continue. When we say it, they say we should not talk about this, but we will talk about it even more, because notice that even today, when an ordinary citizen who does not know the law, even though they say ignorance of the law is no excuse, an ordinary citizen has a problem with justice, they can be arrested and imprisoned without trial for a long time. But when another citizen has a problem with justice, as long as they can mobilize a couple of good lawyers, Their case is quickly taken up, quickly judged, while the poor person rots in prison for a long time. We cannot accept this. There are things, there are situations, and there are things we have not wanted to speak out about out of just a sense of reserve, because we are at a certain level, and we do not want to speak first. But we will break this taboo. This cannot continue like this. People need to change their ways. Many people are still in prison without trial. We will soon launch a campaign to judge those who are in prison for months without trial, because we cannot pay people, and still want them to pay when there is a trial. These practices will stop. It is part of the functioning. Unfortunately, I say it loud and clear, and I invite the honest magistrates to give their time and leave a certain logic, because there are many corrupt magistrates who hide behind unions to carry out certain actions. Up until now, we have remained within a certain logic of trying to respect certain rules, but I want them to understand that it is not because they know how to speak that we do not know how to speak. If anyone continues in this logic, at every moment, we will stand before the people to explain why we violated such a judicial decision, as long as it does not meet the sentiment, because that is the term that exists. The nation first, the nation above all. If a bad decision is made, supposedly to protect certain individuals who harm the nation, we will oppose it, and we will not allow the decision to be executed, and we will explain why we are opposed to it. The Superior Council of the Judiciary has been modified in its structure. They will be installed if it has not already been done, and they will start working. All those who had magistrates' cases, who were caught in the act, who have cases, we will bring everything up to date. They will be judged just like the others. Nothing will be left out. They are aware of this because injustice is a scourge that destroys society. Yes, injustice is a scourge that destroys our society, and it must be clear. Some will say that we did not need to say this here, but we needed to say it. We are warning them, and it will be done. They will see it in the coming days. This is also a warning to the new Superior Council of the Judiciary that will be established to take all cases seriously. Some people were forced into corruption. Some business operators were defrauded, forced into corruption by some members of the judiciary. We will open the door for them to come and denounce these individuals. They will be judged as well. We want a new form of justice. We are not doing this for ourselves. We are not doing this for ourselves, but we are doing it for the masses, because the two categories of citizens, the minority, who is the ruling minority, and the majority, which is the popular rural mass, struggling in the villages, we will not allow this gap in justice. That is why I left the field of justice for last to say that the battle will be launched, and we count on the honest magistrates to do their job honestly, and those among them who are corrupt, who are sold out, and who are scammers, we will not continue to enrich them. We will clean up. And if after these words that I am saying today, some decide to strike or refuse to work, they are free. We will take the necessary measures, but the country will move forward. Every Burkinabe needs dignity. Every Burkinabe needs to live in peace, and justice must be delivered with certain values in mind. We have seen families destroyed because of small judicial decisions that ruined them. I take, for example, a simple neighborhood fight. A simple neighborhood fight. Someone is accused of causing injuries. They are imprisoned, and we do not even realize that it is their wives and children who will suffer in poverty. Families are destroyed for this. We have called for a review of the penal code, and it is being reviewed. We will completely change the justice model because we said it, and we preach it. There are many offenses that can be resolved without necessarily resulting in imprisonment. And I can promise you that in these 5 years, we will drastically reduce the number of prisons and increase the number of workers in our fields, because we will reclaim the land. With that, we will not elaborate on all aspects. We will stop here because you surely have many questions to ask about what we have just said, and we will provide you with clear, simple, and straightforward answers. Thank you very much, and I leave the floor to you.